Well, happy Wednesday. I'm glad you could be here with me today, and we are going to have a little fun today doing something that a lot of people don't think is even a thing. Now, I am lucky enough that I have my production crew here with me today. So, we are just going to send that off, and I will tell you in a minute what we're going to use that for. Now, let's get busy making some keto Oreo cookies. Now, first, I'm thinking that I should probably explain, just a second here. I should probably explain what's going on here. Well, I tell you guys often, it is so important that your knives are sharp, that your kitchen equipment is in good working order because it keeps you safe. So, are my knives sharp? Yes. Is my kitchen equipment in good working order? Well, it is now. Mandolins are an amazing tool to have in the kitchen, but they can be incredibly dangerous. And most of the time when I tell you guys about a product that I recommend, it is because it's an awesome product. It is not usually because it's one that I don't recommend. But today I'm going to talk to you about a product that I absolutely do not recommend. I had a very good mandolin. I had an OXO mandolin. I had it for years and years, and I absolutely loved it. And it came to the end of its life. Eventually, the plastic got brittle, and so it cracked. No, we'll leave that over there for right now. So when it cracked, it went in the garbage. There was no way that you could possibly use it, let alone use it safely. So a little while ago, a mandolin isn't something that I use every day, and I do like practicing my knife skills, but I was going to be making bread and butter pickles, keto bread and butter pickles. So I picked up just a cheap Starfrit mandolin. Remember that name. That is not one that you want. Now that Starfrit mandolin, if you've used a mandolin, you'll know that when you slide a vegetable across it, it goes across the blade and then you bring it back, and it always has the safety hat that you put on it. Well, just across the blade there was the tiniest of little ridges, and I couldn't do that. And so every time I tried to slide the cucumber using the safety across it, it would just stop dead. So finally I got frustrated with this little tiny ridge, and I took the safety slide off of it. And I thought, I'm very careful in the kitchen. I'm just going to push my cucumber across that blade and everything will be fine. And it was for a little while until it wasn't. And I pushed the cucumber across the blade and I got a lovely slice of my thumb that landed squarely on one little cucumber. Kind of looked like a Halloween hors d'oeuvre. So at any rate, I really do encourage you to make sure that your kitchen equipment is in good working order. I know how dangerous mandolins are, and I know I should have taken that back or gotten rid of it or whatever. I also know that when it comes to most things in life, you get what you pay for. That's not always true at a convenience store, but in other places it is. So that is what happened to my thumb. It's probably going to be 2 or 3 months before it's totally healed. However, I didn't do any serious damage. It was just a slice of me, and it didn't do any damage to nerves or tendons or anything else. Alexa, stop. So that's what happened there, and I have a surprise that I'm going to have my production crew take care of right now, and we'll take a look at that later. So can you get that out of there? Thank you. Okay, so let's get started. We are going to make keto Oreo cookies. Now, you don't want to miss part 2 of this, because on Friday we are going to do something magical with the keto Oreo cookies, and you are going to absolutely love it. Just over there somewhere. Okay, so let's get busy. So we've got a few things going on in here because I know that we are not going to have enough time to do everything. So now usually when I do something like this, I would use I would just mix it by hand, but my mixing hand is a little bit gibbled at the moment, so give it a week or so and it'll be back. But right now, okay, so we want to mix the dry ingredients and the wet ingredients separately. Well, most of the dry ingredients, and this is really important. So we want half a stick of softened butter, and it's important that it be softened because you want this all to mix together well. So we're going to add our half a cup, not half a stick, half a cup. So this is 112 grams of softened butter going in the bowl. Okay. There we go. So there is that. And to that, we are going to add 2/3 of a cup of granular erythritol. Now, I need to show you guys what I'm doing here. Okay, so we have 112 grams, 1 stick, half a cup of softened butter. We're going to add 2/3 of a cup, or 130 grams of granular erythritol. Now, if we were doing something that we were going to be serving cold, it wasn't going to be heated, I would probably use powdered erythritol. But because this is going to go in the oven, because it's baking, granular erythritol is cheaper and it works perfectly in baking. So that's what we're putting in here. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to beat this until the sugar and the butter are well mixed in. And that only takes a minute. Now you can keep beating this and make it nice and fluffy, but in Oreo cookies, not really a big deal. Okay, I'm going to try and keep this off as much as I can, but we're going to be a little noisy today. Okay, now, here's where my one-handed egg cracking skills come in very handy. So let me move this out of the way. Now, I'm going to crack the eggs in here. You grabbed the wrong carton. Okay, well, we're just going to wait until... Okay, so here's what happens in the kitchen sometimes. Yeah. Okay, hard-boiled eggs not going to work out so well in here, but that's okay because we're just going to set these in here, and apparently I know what we're having for lunch. So now, let me grab a carton of eggs, and we're just going to warm those up. Now, these are going to go in warm, a little bit more than warm. You should be able to put your hand in the water and keep it there without it burning. If it's hotter than that, the eggs are going to start to cook. And they only take a couple minutes. So actually, this accident, not only was it good for lunch, but it is good to show you what we're doing. Now, as soon as we put these 6 eggs in here, they're going to start cooling that water off. Okay, so there is that. We'll stick these 2 back in the fridge. And while those are warming up, and they're only going to take a couple of minutes to warm up, we're going to set this aside, and we are going to do our dry ingredients. When you're doing something in the kitchen, whether you're doing it by yourself or you have someone helping you, don't let something that goes a little bit sideways throw you off. It's not a big deal. Anything in a kitchen, anything in the kitchen, you can get past it. So, we will deal with this, and these eggs are just going to sit here and warm for a little while, and while we're waiting for that, we're going to put our dry ingredients together. So, we want 56 grams of almond flour. Now, this is going to seem upside down to you, and I know that, but it is not. In this recipe, for the first time in a long time, we're going to use 56 grams of almond flour and 150 grams of coconut flour. Now, the coconut flour is the reason why we have so many eggs, because coconut flour is hugely absorbent. It's also a lot firmer. So when you use coconut flour, whatever you're making, if there's a lot of coconut flour, is going to be a lot firmer, and that's exactly what we want. Where did my spoon go? There it is. That's what we want in this, because these Oreos are going to be put together like the sandwich cookies, with icing in between. Now, we probably are not going to get to the icing today, but we will get to the cookies today. So we have 56 grams of almond flour. We have 150 grams of coconut flour, and we are going to add half a cup. You know what? I measured this and I weighed it too, and I don't even remember how much it weighed. Now this recipe is off of the Nom Nom website, so thank you very much to nomnom.com for providing this recipe. So we have half a cup of cocoa, okay. Now you want to make sure that everything in here is well mixed. Now to that, we're going to add half a teaspoon of baking powder, or not baking powder, baking soda. Baking soda in this particular recipe is very important because baking soda takes the bitter out of the cocoa. Now, the other thing that I do not have yet, okay, let me move this and move our wet ingredients out of the way, is a full cup of coffee. And today I am using Da Vinci buttered rum sugar-free sweetener, one of my favorites. So we'll just set that back there, and magically my cup is going to be full. There we go. Oh, and it is only 20 after 10, so definitely early enough for a great big cup of coffee. Now I'm just going to move these out of the way and set this back here so I don't spill it. Okay, so we have our baking soda in there, half a teaspoon of salt, and that is it for the dry ingredients, except for the granular erythritol. Oh, itchy nose. I hate it when that happens. Okay, so make sure this is well blended. We don't want lumps of cocoa or lumps of almond flour or coconut flour. You can run it through a sifter if you like. But because I'm using my mixer today, I'm not going to worry about doing that. Now you'll notice if you've been watching the clock, it hasn't been very long, but already these are warm enough to use. So I'm just going to send them to get drained so we're not dealing with quite so much water. And then we will dry them off and we will finish adding our wet ingredients. So I'm going to set the dry ingredients aside and bring the wet ingredients back. We're going to add a little bit of salt left in there, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, and 6 eggs. And those 6 eggs are going to absorb a lot of that coconut powder. Now, if you're watching me crack eggs today, you probably don't want to take lessons from me because I'm kind of doing it one-handed. Okay. It's a good skill to have. Can you crack eggs one-handed? I remember seeing the Galloping Gourmet. Now, if you are younger than 50 or not Canadian, you probably don't know who the Galloping Gourmet was, but he was one of the first TV chefs in Canada anyway. And he was on TV, I think he was on every day. And he used to crack eggs one-handed all the time, and I just thought that was the coolest skill. Now, I am not paying attention to what I'm doing, so I'm doing more crushing than cracking, but it's all good. This is one of those days where my kitchen rag is hugely important. Okay, now we are going to pour these eggs. Now, I was not paying attention. I should have been pouring these in here one at a time in case I had a bad egg, but Fortunately for us, I did not have a bad egg. So now we are going to turn this on, and we're going to turn it up. And I'm going to start talking a little bit louder. Hopefully you can hear me. Hi, Del. Now, whether you're watching this live or watching it later, mark your calendar, because Friday is going to be part 2 of this, and we're going to make something magical with our Oreo cookies. So you don't want to miss that. Okay, now add your dry ingredients a bit at a time. I'm going to make sure this is whipped up really nice before we do that. Now, I definitely did not get all of the lumps out of here, so it's a good thing that I'm using my mixer today. Now, after you have that first bit mixed in, you can dump the rest of it. So into 2 batches, half and half-ish. And we'll do this as quick as we can so we can get rid of this noise. Now with cake batter, you don't want it perfectly smooth. With cookie batter, it is not as big a deal. Make sure you get right down to the bottom of the bowl. You don't want to get down there and find out that you have a bunch of stuff that's not mixed in. And then pull your beaters up and let everything come off of there. Okay. There we go. That is mixed. Quality control test, right? Okay, I'm going to send those away, as much as it pains my heart to send a beater away that I know is not going to be licked, but it is what it is. Okay, now we want to make little balls that are about 1.25 inches across, about 20 grams, 21 grams. And you want them to be uniform in size. Now I've got a cookie sheet that's going to come and visit us right away, but while we're waiting for that, because, let me grab my extra gloves. Okay, so because I'm going to be doing this with my hands, I'm going to put gloves on. Now on my left hand, that is not wounded from a mandolin. Now, I will say, when I went to the hospital, and yes, I did have to go to the hospital because I couldn't get it to stop bleeding, the doctor on duty said this was not one of the worst mandolin cuts he'd ever seen. He said I actually had done a pretty good job, and I had also taken pictures, which they also appreciated because they could get a good look at what had happened without actually having to touch my injury. So I appreciated that. Now, when you put parchment paper on your cookie sheet, you want to fold it in. And it isn't a big deal if it isn't done. It just makes it, and I'm not doing a very good job here, but that also is not terribly important. It just makes it a little easier when it isn't sticking up over the ends. This is close enough. Okay, now we are going to make little 1-inch balls, so just get a spoon. And you'll probably want to weigh the first few. So just grab a small handful, make inch, 1.25 inches, and roll them into a ball, and then flatten them into a disc. And put them on your cookie sheet, and off you go. And do that again, and again, and again. Now, when these come out of the oven, it is important that you let them cool on the cookie sheet. So you're going to want to have a couple of cookie sheets. These are not all going to be exactly the same size and shape, but they're going to be close. So, yeah, that one's a little bit big. Now, I am going to do most of these when we are not hanging out together. because I see what time it's getting to be. So I'm just going to do a few. Now I've got lots of cookies to make when we're done here today, but these freeze beautifully. So, check, always check, look on the internet. I say it over and over again, keto is not about giving up the things that you love. It's about finding a new, healthier way to have it. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about cake or cookies or ice cream or pasta or whatever it is. You can find a way to keto it. If you can't figure it out yourself, somebody else has. So, always come and ask me a question. I'm always happy to answer. Okay, now, there's a few of those done. So we're just going to set these aside. I'll finish this pan in a little while. But we'll set this aside, and here are some that are done. Now I'm going to take the sticky gloves off. That one can go in the trash, and this one can go in the trash. Now you'll notice, because I want to keep the bandage clean, I'm really not interested in getting an infection in this thumb. So cut the fingers out and just have the glove over my thumb to keep it clean. And yeah. Okay, so these ones, now I'm just going to get a spatula because they're a little bit stuck. Now you don't need to oil the pan or spray the parchment paper, but there is an Oreo cookie. Now the icing that you put in, 3 cups of powdered erythritol, 2 or 3 tablespoons of whipping cream, and then, now the ones that I'm going to do, and again, same site I got this off of, I'm going to do the cream cheese frosting, so I'm going to add cream cheese instead of butter. So I'm going to do 8 ounces of cream cheese, or 1 brick, 250 grams. You could do the same thing with 112 grams of butter. Different densities, so different weights. Different amounts needed. Not nearly as much butter needed because it's straight fat, where cream cheese has more protein in it. So these are the Oreo cookies. They are going to have icing in the middle. Or you can eat them just like this. You can freeze them just like this, and then you can ice them later. So these don't have to be something that's hard to do. I'm going to leave some of these to dry out so that they're nice and dry and crunchy for Friday. I'll let you think about what's happening. You don't want to miss part 2. Have an amazing, amazing week. I will see you Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. Mountain. You don't want to miss it. Do your best to live your best version of this shining life. That's what we're going to do. Bye for now.